Blood on the doorstep, a pacemaker ripped out and left on the floor. 84 years old and gone without a trace in the dead of night. This is the mother of one of America's most recognizable journalists, vanished from her own home while the cameras were destroyed and the clock was ticking. 13 days into the investigation and no arrests, no body, no answers, just a masked figure caught on camera, a family begging for mercy and a kidnapper who might be watching right now. February 1, 2026, Tucson, Arizona. When the sun came up that Saturday morning, Nancy Ellen Guthrie was already gone. Her daughter, NBC Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, would soon step away from the cameras she's worked behind for decades to make the most desperate plea of her life. The FBI would deploy hundreds of agents. The President of the United States would personally intervene. A $100,000 reward would be posted. And still nothing, because whoever took Nancy Guthrie knew exactly what they were doing, and they left behind just enough evidence to taunt investigators while staying completely invisible. This is Cold Case Desk, and this is not a solved case. This is happening right now. This is Nancy Guthrie. And someone watching this video knows exactly where she is. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button. Because what you're about to hear isn't just another true crime story, this is an active investigation, and your attention, your shares, your voice could be the thing that brings this woman home. Let's get into it. February 1, 2026. Tucson, Arizona. The sun rises over the Catalina foothills, painting the desert landscape in shades of amber and gold. It's a Saturday morning. Most people are sleeping in, making coffee, planning their weekend. But in a burnt adobe home on the northern edge of the city, something is terribly, horrifically wrong. Nancy Ellen Guthrie is gone. Not missing in the way someone wanders off confused. Not gone because she decided to take an early morning walk. Gone in a way that leaves blood on her doorstep. Gone in a way that leaves her pacemaker, the device literally keeping her alive, ripped out and discarded on her bedroom floor. Gone in a way that has the Federal Bureau of Investigation deploying hundreds of agents. Gone in a way that has the President of the United States personally intervening. Gone in a way that has her daughter, NBC Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, stepping away from the cameras for the first time in her career to make the most desperate plea of her life. Bring my mother home. And here we are, 13 days later. No arrests. No body. No answers. Just questions that multiply like shadows in the desert sun. Just a masked figure caught on grainy surveillance footage. Just a family begging for mercy. Just a kidnapper who might be watching this video right now, knowing exactly what they did, knowing exactly where Nancy Guthrie is, and staying silent. This is Cold Case Crime Lab. I'm your host. And we don't look away. We don't move on to the next story. We stay until we find answers. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about who Nancy Guthrie really is, because she's not just a victim. She's not just a name in a headline. She's a human being with a life, a history, a family that loves her. And understanding who she is might be the key to understanding what happened to her. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born January 27, 1942 in Fort Wright, Kentucky. That makes her 84 years old at the time of her disappearance. 84. Think about that for a moment. This is a woman who has lived through World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Civil Rights Movement, Watergate, 9/11, the pandemic. She's seen America transform again and again. She's built a life, raised a family, survived tragedy, and made it to an age where she should be surrounded by loved ones, safe, comfortable, at peace. Instead, she's somewhere out there right now. Possibly injured. Possibly terrified. Possibly worse. Her life wasn't easy. In 1988, when Nancy was only 46 years old, her husband Charles died suddenly of a heart attack. He was 49. They were on a mining trip in Mexico. Can you imagine? You're on what should be an adventure, an experience, maybe even a vacation, and your husband collapses. Dies in a foreign country. And you're left alone with 3 children to raise. Annie. Savannah. Cameron. Nancy didn't fall apart. She didn't give up. She went to work. For 17 years, she worked in public relations at the University of Arizona. Not a job someone does for fun. It's demanding work. It requires intelligence, social skills, the ability to communicate, to manage crises, to represent an institution. And by all accounts, Nancy excelled at it. She was sharp. That's the word everyone uses. Sharp as a tack. Even at 84 years old, there was no dementia, no confusion, no cognitive decline. Nancy Guthrie knew exactly who she was and what was happening around her at all times. She was also deeply involved in her church. Faith mattered to Nancy. Community mattered. She wasn't a recluse. She wasn't isolated. She had friends, family, a social life. She was connected to the world around her. But she also had health issues. Serious ones. Nancy had chronic heart conditions. She had a pacemaker implanted in her chest, a device that regulated her heartbeat, kept her alive. Without it, her heart could fail. She also required daily medication. Specific medication for her heart, for her blood pressure, for various age-related conditions. Without that medication, her health would deteriorate rapidly. And she had limited mobility. Nancy could walk maybe 50 yards on her own. That's about half a football field. After that, she needed assistance. She couldn't hike. She couldn't run. She couldn't escape if someone came for her in the night. She lived alone. That's important. After Charles died in 1988, Nancy eventually settled into life as a widow. Her children grew up, moved on with their lives. Savannah became one of the most recognizable faces in American journalism, co-anchoring the Today Show, interviewing presidents and celebrities, covering breaking news around the world. Annie stayed closer to home, building her own life in Arizona. Cameron pursued his own path. But Nancy stayed in Tucson. Specifically, she lived in a burnt adobe home in the Catalina foothills, an unincorporated area north of Tucson near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. The Catalina foothills is affluent, quiet, scenic. It's the kind of place where people move to enjoy their retirement, to have space, to wake up to mountain views and desert sunsets. It's not the kind of place where you expect something like this to happen. And here's a detail that matters more than you might think. Nancy's home was in Pima County jurisdiction, not Tucson police jurisdiction. That means the Pima County Sheriff's Department is the primary agency handling this case, not the Tucson Police Department. Different resources, different protocols, different chain of command. In a case like this, where every second counts, jurisdictional issues can complicate things. They can slow down response times. They can create confusion about who's responsible for what. Keep that in mind as we move forward. So that's Nancy Guthrie. 84 years old. Widowed. Mother of 3. Sharp, active, connected. But also vulnerable. Heart problems. Limited mobility. Living alone. Now let's talk about the last time anyone saw her alive. Saturday night, January 31st, 2026. It's a normal evening. Nancy has plans to have dinner with her daughter Annie and Annie's husband, Tommaso Cyan. At 5:32 p.m., Nancy orders an Uber. The driver picks her up at her home in the Catalina foothills and drives her approximately 10 minutes to Annie's house. Let's pause here and talk about Annie and Tommaso for a moment, because they're about to become central figures in this story, whether they want to be or not. Annie is Nancy's daughter. She's married to Tommaso Cyan, who goes by the name Tommaso. He's 50 years old, Italian-born, and he works as a 6th grade and AP biology teacher at Basis Oro Valley School. BASIS is a charter school chain known for its rigorous academic standards. Teaching 6th grade and AP biology means Tommaso is working with kids ranging from about 11 years old to 17 or 18. He's educated, professional, trusted with other people's children. By all accounts, Annie and Tommaso have a normal, stable marriage. They live about 10 minutes from Nancy's home. Close enough to help if she needs anything, but far enough to maintain their own lives. On this particular Saturday night, they're having Nancy over for dinner. It's not unusual. It's not a special occasion. It's just a family dinner. Nancy arrives by Uber at 5:32 p.m. They eat. They talk. The evening is uneventful. Nobody argues. Nobody seems upset. It's just a normal night with a mother visiting her daughter. Then, at approximately 9:48 p.m., it's time for Nancy to go home. Here's where things get specific, and you need to pay attention to these details because they matter. Tommaso offers to drive Nancy home. She accepts. They get in his car. He drives her the 10 minutes back to her house in the Catalina foothills. At 9:48 p.m., Nancy's garage door opens. Tommaso has pulled into the driveway. Nancy gets out of the car. She goes inside. At 9:50 p.m., the garage door closes. 2 minutes. That's the window. The garage door opens at 9:48, closes at 9:50. Tommaso leaves. Nancy is alone in her house. That's the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie alive. 9:50 p.m., Saturday, January 31, 2026. Her son-in-law drops her off at home, sees her go inside, and drives away. What happens next is where everything falls apart. Sometime between 9:50 p.m. on Saturday night and early Sunday morning, someone enters Nancy Guthrie's home. Not through a broken window. Not by kicking down a door. The entry appears to be controlled, deliberate, possibly even invited. We'll get to that in a moment. Whoever enters that house knows what they're doing. They know Nancy is elderly, vulnerable, alone. They know she has limited mobility. They know she can't fight back. They know she can't run. And they do something so brutal, so shocking, that when investigators arrive, they know immediately this isn't a simple missing person case. This is something darker. Blood is found on the doorstep. Not a small amount. Not a cut from a fall. Enough blood to indicate serious injury. Nancy's pacemaker is found on the floor of her bedroom. Not in her chest where it belongs. On the floor. Ripped out. Discarded. Let me be very clear about what this means. A pacemaker is implanted under the skin, usually near the collarbone. It's connected to the heart by wires called leads. Removing a pacemaker isn't like taking off a watch or a necklace. It requires cutting through skin, possibly breaking through scar tissue, disconnecting the leads from the heart. It's invasive. It's violent. It causes pain, trauma, bleeding. And for someone like Nancy, who depends on that pacemaker to regulate her heartbeat, removing it could be fatal within hours or even minutes, depending on how severe her heart condition is. Whoever did this either wanted Nancy dead or wanted to control her, to make sure she couldn't survive without them. The surveillance cameras at Nancy's home have been destroyed. Not accidentally. Not from a power outage. Deliberately destroyed. Someone didn't want their face recorded. Someone didn't want evidence of what they were doing. But here's the thing, destroying cameras in 2026 is harder than it sounds. Most modern security systems upload footage to the cloud in real time. Even if you smash the physical camera, the footage might already be saved remotely. So either the perpetrator is tech-savvy enough to disable the system before destroying the cameras, or they didn't care because they were wearing a mask, or they knew the system wasn't cloud-connected. We don't have confirmation yet on what type of security system Nancy had, but we do know that a masked figure was caught on camera. Whether that's from a neighbor's camera, a doorbell camera down the street, or from footage captured before Nancy's cameras were destroyed, we don't know. But there's video. And in that video, there's a person. Wearing a mask. Moving with purpose. The FBI has that footage. They're analyzing it. They're looking at body language, gait, height, build, clothing, anything that might lead to an identification. But so far, nothing has been released to the public. No description. No sketch. Nothing. Why? Because either the footage is too unclear to be useful, or the FBI knows exactly who they're looking for and they're building a case before making an arrest. Or, and this is the possibility that keeps me up at night, the person in that video is someone unexpected. Someone close to the family. Someone who would cause a media firestorm if their name was released before an arrest. Nancy's family discovers she's missing on Sunday, February 1, 2026. We don't know the exact time, but it's early enough in the day that the alarm is raised immediately. Nancy doesn't answer her phone. She doesn't respond to texts. Someone, most likely Annie or Savannah, goes to her house to check on her. They find the blood. They find the pacemaker. They find the destroyed cameras. And they call 911. The Pima County Sheriff's Department responds. Within hours, this becomes a full-scale investigation. The FBI is called in. Why? Because when the victim is the mother of a nationally known journalist, when there's evidence of foul play, when there's the possibility of kidnapping, the FBI has jurisdiction under federal kidnapping statutes. The FBI deploys hundreds of agents. Think about what that means. The Federal Bureau of Investigation doesn't deploy hundreds of agents for a random missing person case. They deploy hundreds of agents when they believe a crime has been committed, when they believe time is critical, when they believe the victim's life is in immediate danger. A $100,000 reward is posted. That's a significant amount of money. That's the kind of reward that gets people to come forward with tips, to search their memories, to look at their neighbors differently. And then the President of the United States personally intervenes. We don't know exactly what form that intervention took, whether it was a phone call to the FBI director, whether it was additional resources, whether it was a public statement, but the President is involved. That tells you how high-profile this case is. That tells you how much pressure law enforcement is under to solve this fast. But 13 days later, as of the time I'm recording this, there are no arrests. No body. No answers. Just questions. Where is Nancy Guthrie? Is she alive? Is she being held somewhere against her will? Is she injured, bleeding, dying slowly without her medication? Or is she already dead, her body hidden somewhere in the vast Arizona desert where it might never be found? Who took her? Was it a stranger? A random home invasion? Or was it someone who knew her, someone who knew her routine, someone who knew exactly when she would be home alone? Why was her pacemaker removed? Was it to ensure she couldn't survive? Was it some kind of sick trophy? Was it part of a medical emergency gone wrong? And why destroy the cameras? What did the perpetrator think was on those cameras that was so damaging they had to be destroyed? Let's talk about the possible scenarios here, because there are really only a few that make sense given the evidence. Scenario 1, this was a stranger abduction. Someone stalked Nancy, watched her house, waited for the right moment. They broke in, overpowered her, removed her pacemaker either out of cruelty or to keep her weak and compliant, destroyed the cameras to hide their identity, and took her somewhere. Maybe they're holding her for ransom. Maybe they have some other motive. Maybe they're a serial predator who targets elderly victims. The problem with this scenario is that stranger abductions of elderly victims are incredibly rare. They do happen, but they're not common. Most crimes against the elderly are financial, scams, fraud, exploitation. Physical abduction is unusual because elderly victims don't have the same value to criminals as younger victims in terms of ransom or trafficking. Scenario 2, this was a kidnapping for ransom, and the perpetrator knew Nancy's daughter Savannah is a wealthy, high-profile journalist. They took Nancy knowing the family would pay anything to get her back. This scenario makes more sense. Savannah Guthrie's net worth is estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars. She's been co-anchoring the Today Show since 2012. She's interviewed presidents, covered royal weddings, reported from disaster zones and war zones. She's a household name. And someone might have thought, if I take her mother, the family will pay. But here's the problem, it's been 13 days and there's been no ransom demand. At least not one that's been made public. Usually in a kidnapping for ransom, the demand comes within hours or days. You don't wait. Every day you wait is another day the victim could die, another day law enforcement gets closer to finding you. So either there's been a ransom demand that the family and FBI are keeping quiet, or this isn't about money. Scenario 3, this was personal. Someone who knew Nancy, someone who had a grudge, someone who wanted to hurt her or her family, took her. This is where things get dark, because if it's personal, the suspect pool narrows significantly. Who knew Nancy well enough to know her routine? Who knew when she would be home alone? Who had access to her house? Family members. Friends. Neighbors. Service workers. Caregivers. And here's where I have to be very careful with what I say, because I am not accusing anyone. I am simply laying out the logical possibilities based on the evidence we have. Tommaso Cian was the last person confirmed to have seen Nancy alive. He dropped her off at 9:48 p.m. The garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. He left. Or did he? Is it possible Tommaso didn't actually leave? Is it possible he stayed, went back into the house, and something happened? I don't know. The investigators don't know, or if they do, they're not telling us. But Tommaso's timeline is going to be scrutinized like you wouldn't believe. Where did he go after dropping Nancy off? Did he drive straight home? Did he stop anywhere? Are there cameras that caught his car? Does his phone's GPS data match his story? If Tommaso is innocent, this scrutiny is a nightmare. Imagine being suspected of harming your wife's mother, your children's grandmother, and having to prove you didn't do it while also dealing with the trauma of her disappearance. If Tommaso is guilty, he made a critical mistake by being the last person to see her. He put himself directly in the crosshairs of the investigation. But let's be fair, there's no public evidence implicating Tommaso. None. The FBI hasn't arrested him. The family hasn't accused him. For all we know, he's been cooperative, provided his timeline, and been cleared. So who else? If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this shocking story. Let's talk about the possibility this was someone Nancy knew but not a family member. A friend. A neighbor. Someone from church. Someone she trusted enough to open the door to at night. Think about this, Nancy's house doesn't show signs of forced entry, at least not based on what's been reported. That suggests either the perpetrator had a key, or Nancy let them in. At 9:50 p.m. on a Saturday night, would Nancy open her door to a stranger? Probably not. Would she open it to someone she knew? Almost certainly. So who had access to Nancy's house? Did she give spare keys to anyone? Did she have a cleaning service? A gardener? A caregiver who helped with errands or medical appointments? We don't know. The FBI is presumably tracking down every single person who had any contact with Nancy in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. They're interviewing neighbors. They're pulling phone records. They're looking at financial transactions to see if Nancy hired anyone for any services. They're building a timeline of her life in excruciating detail because somewhere in that timeline is the answer. Let's talk about the masked figure caught on camera. This is one of the most tantalizing pieces of evidence, and also one of the most frustrating, because we know so little about it. A person was caught on camera wearing a mask. Where was the camera? Was it Nancy's camera before it was destroyed? Was it a neighbor's camera? Was it a traffic camera on a nearby street? We don't know. What kind of mask? A ski mask? A medical mask? A disguise mask? We don't know. What time was the person caught on camera? Was it before Nancy arrived home? Was it after Tommaso dropped her off? Was it in the middle of the night? We don't know. What was the person doing in the video? Walking toward Nancy's house. Running away from it. Standing still. We don't know. The FBI has this footage. They've analyzed it. And they've chosen not to release it to the public, which tells me one of two things. Either the footage is too unclear to generate useful tips from the public, or the FBI knows who the person is and releasing the footage would compromise the investigation. If it's the former, that's frustrating but understandable. Grainy security footage from a distance at night might show a figure but not reveal any identifying details. If it's the latter, that's explosive. That means the FBI has identified a suspect but doesn't have enough evidence yet to make an arrest. They're watching that person. They're building a case. They're waiting for the right moment. And that person, if they exist, is walking around free right now, knowing Nancy Guthrie is somewhere, knowing what happened to her, and staying silent. Let's talk about the pacemaker. This detail is so disturbing, so specific, that it has to mean something. Pacemakers are not easy to remove. As I mentioned earlier, they're implanted under the skin, connected to the heart with leads. Removing one requires cutting through skin, dealing with scar tissue, and disconnecting delicate wires. Why would someone do this? Theory 1, they wanted Nancy dead. By removing her pacemaker, they knew her heart would fail. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. And if Nancy is being held somewhere without medical care, removing her pacemaker is effectively a death sentence. Theory 2, they wanted to keep Nancy weak and compliant. Without her pacemaker, Nancy would be extremely weak, possibly unconscious, unable to fight back or try to escape. It's a way to control someone without having to physically restrain them constantly. Theory 3, the pacemaker was removed post-mortem. This is the darkest possibility. If Nancy died, either from natural causes or foul play, and someone panicked, they might have removed the pacemaker thinking it could be used to track her body. Some modern pacemakers have tracking capabilities. Some can be interrogated remotely. If the perpetrator thought the pacemaker could lead investigators to Nancy's body, they might have removed it and left it behind as a misdirection. Theory 4, the pacemaker was removed by someone with medical knowledge. This isn't something your average person would know how to do. Yes, you could probably figure it out with a YouTube video and a strong stomach, but it's more likely someone with medical training, a nurse, a doctor, a paramedic, a veterinarian, would have the skill and knowledge to remove a pacemaker. If that's true, investigators are looking at people with medical backgrounds who had access to Nancy. Let's talk about the blood on the doorstep. Blood is evidence. Blood tells a story. How much blood? A few drops? A puddle? A trail? The reports say, blood on the doorstep, but they don't specify the amount. That matters because the amount of blood tells you about the severity of the injury. A few drops could be from a minor wound, a cut, a scrape, a nosebleed. A puddle or a trail indicates serious trauma, a stab wound, a blow to the head, a major laceration. If Nancy was injured seriously enough to leave blood on the doorstep, she needed immediate medical attention. And if she didn't get it, she could have died quickly. Whose blood is it? Presumably investigators have tested it and confirmed it's Nancy's. But what if it's not? What if it's the perpetrator's blood? What if Nancy fought back, scratched them, bit them, drew blood? If the blood belongs to someone else, that's DNA evidence. That's a direct link to a suspect. Where exactly is the blood? Is it on the outside doorstep, suggesting something happened before Nancy entered the house? Is it on the inside doorstep, suggesting something happened as she was entering or just after she entered. If it's outside, that suggests an attack occurred before Nancy even made it into her house. Maybe someone was waiting for her. Maybe they attacked her as she got out of the car or as she walked to the door. If it's inside, that suggests Nancy made it into her house and then something happened. Maybe someone was already inside waiting for her. Maybe someone followed her in. The blood is evidence, and investigators are analyzing every drop of it to figure out what happened. Let's talk about the destroyed cameras. In 2026, most home security cameras are smart cameras connected to the internet. They record continuously or on motion detection. They upload footage to the cloud automatically. Even if you destroy the physical camera, the footage might already be saved remotely. So if the cameras were destroyed, one of several things is true. 1. The cameras were old-fashioned analog cameras that recorded only to a local device. If you destroy the device, you destroy the footage. This is possible but less common in 2026. 2. The cameras were smart cameras, but the perpetrator disabled the internet connection or the cloud upload before destroying them. This requires technical knowledge. You'd have to know how to access the camera's settings or disable the home's Wi-Fi or cut the internet connection entirely. 3. The cameras were destroyed after the footage was already uploaded, and the perpetrator didn't realize the footage was saved remotely. This would be a critical mistake on their part. 4. The cameras were destroyed as a symbolic act or a misdirection, even though the perpetrator was wearing a mask and didn't care if they were recorded. If the FBI has usable footage from before the cameras were destroyed, they're analyzing it frame by frame. They're looking at timestamps. They're looking at who appears in the footage and when. They're comparing it to other sources, neighbor cameras, traffic cameras, doorbell cameras down the street. They're building a minute-by-minute timeline of what happened, and somewhere in that timeline is the moment everything went wrong. Let's talk about Savannah Guthrie. She's at the center of this story, even though she's not a suspect. She's the victim's daughter. She's one of the most recognizable journalists in America. And her mother is missing. Savannah Guthrie has been co-anchoring NBC's Today Show since 2012. Before that, she was NBC's White House correspondent. She's covered presidential elections, Supreme Court decisions, natural disasters, international crises. She's interviewed presidents, prime ministers, celebrities, criminals. She's a professional. She's trained to stay calm under pressure, to ask tough questions, to get to the truth. But this isn't a story she's covering. This is her mother. This is her life. On February 1st, when Nancy was discovered missing, Savannah's world stopped. She stepped away from the Today Show. She released a statement begging for her mother's safe return. She offered the $100,000 reward. She worked with the FBI, providing any information she could, answering any questions they had. And she waited. Because what else can you do? Imagine being Savannah Guthrie right now. You've spent your entire career asking questions, finding answers, holding people accountable. And now you can't do any of that. You have to sit back and let investigators do their job. You have to trust the process. You have to hope that someone, somewhere, will come forward with information. And every day that passes without answers is another day your mother could be suffering. Another day she's without her medication. Another day her heart could fail. Another day she could be dying somewhere, calling for you, and you can't help her. It's unbearable. Savannah has 2 children of her own, Vale and Charles. They're old enough to understand that something terrible has happened to their grandmother. They're asking questions. They're scared. And Savannah has to be strong for them while dealing with her own terror. This is what makes this case so visceral, so heartbreaking. We're not talking about a stranger. We're talking about someone's mother, someone's grandmother. We're talking about a family being torn apart by something they can't control. Let's talk about the FBI's investigation. What are they doing right now, 13 days into this case? They're interviewing everyone who had contact with Nancy in the weeks and months before her disappearance. Family members, friends, neighbors, church members, medical professionals, service workers. Anyone who knew Nancy or had access to her home. They're analyzing the footage from the masked figure. They're using gait analysis, height estimation, clothing identification, anything that might lead to a suspect. They're pulling phone records for Nancy and everyone in her circle. Who did she call? Who called her? Who texted her? Were there any suspicious communications in the days before she vanished? They're looking at financial records. Did Nancy make any unusual purchases? Did she withdraw a large amount of cash? Did she send money to anyone? Were there any suspicious transactions on her credit cards or bank accounts? They're searching the area around Nancy's home. Cadaver dogs. Search teams. Aerial surveillance. They're looking for any sign of Nancy, any clue about where she might have been taken. They're examining the physical evidence from the scene. The blood. The pacemaker. Any fingerprints, DNA, fibers, hair, anything that might identify the perpetrator. They're creating a digital footprint of Nancy's last days. Where did her phone go? Did she use her computer? Did she send any emails? Did she post on social media? Every digital action leaves a trace, and investigators are following those traces. They're looking at similar cases. Has there been a pattern of attacks on elderly victims in the Tucson area? Are there other unsolved disappearances that might be connected? Could this be the work of a serial offender? They're working with the media. They released information about the case to generate tips from the public. They're managing the flow of information carefully, balancing the need for public assistance with the need to protect the integrity of the investigation. And they're under enormous pressure. This is the mother of a nationally known journalist. The president is involved. The media is watching every move. If they make a mistake, if they miss something, if Nancy dies because they didn't act fast enough, the fallout will be catastrophic. So they're working around the clock. Hundreds of agents. Thousands of hours of work. All focused on one question: where is Nancy Guthrie? Let's talk about the timeline again, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page about when things happened. Saturday, January 31st, 5:32 p.m., Nancy takes an Uber to Annie's house for dinner. Sometime between 5:32 p.m. and 9:48 p.m., Nancy has dinner with Annie and Tommaso. The evening is uneventful. 9:48 p.m., Tommaso drives Nancy home. Her garage door opens. 9:50 p.m., Nancy's garage door closes. She's inside her house. Tommaso leaves. Sometime between 9:50 p.m. Saturday night and early Sunday morning, February 1st, Nancy disappears. Blood is left on the doorstep. Her pacemaker is found on the floor. The surveillance cameras are destroyed. Sunday, February 1st, Nancy is discovered missing. The Pima County Sheriff's Department is called. The FBI gets involved. That's a window of maybe 8 to 10 hours between when Nancy was last seen and when she was discovered missing. That's a lot of time. Time for someone to take her somewhere far away. Time for someone to hide her body in the desert. Time for someone to clean up evidence. But it's also a narrow enough window that investigators can focus their efforts. They're looking at everyone who was in the Tucson area during those hours. They're pulling surveillance footage from gas stations, traffic cameras, ATMs, anywhere someone might have been caught on camera. They're looking for vehicles. Did any cars pass by Nancy's house during those hours? Did any neighbors see anything unusual? Did anyone hear anything, a scream, a struggle, a car door slamming? Every detail matters. Every second counts. Let's talk about the desert. Tucson is surrounded by vast stretches of desert. The Sonoran Desert stretches for thousands of square miles. It's harsh, unforgiving terrain. Temperatures can drop to near freezing at night and soar to over 100 degrees during the day. There are mountains, canyons, ravines, abandoned mines, endless places to hide a body. If Nancy was taken into the desert, finding her could be nearly impossible. Search teams can cover only so much ground. Even with helicopters, drones, and search dogs, the desert is too big, too empty. And if Nancy was taken into the desert without her pacemaker, without her medication, she wouldn't survive long. A few hours, maybe a day at most. The cold, the heat, the lack of water, the stress on her heart, it would be too much. So investigators are racing against time. They're searching the most accessible areas first, places near roads, near trails, near anywhere a vehicle could go. They're looking for tire tracks, footprints, any sign that someone was there. But the desert doesn't give up its secrets easily. Let's talk about motive. Why would someone take Nancy Guthrie? Money, ransom. As I mentioned earlier, Savannah Guthrie is wealthy. Someone might have thought they could extort money from the family. Revenge, maybe someone had a grudge against Nancy or her family. Maybe someone felt wronged and decided to hurt them in the worst possible way. Mental illness, it's possible the perpetrator is suffering from severe mental illness, acting out delusions or paranoia. They might have targeted Nancy randomly or because they convinced themselves she was part of some conspiracy. Opportunity, maybe this wasn't planned. Maybe someone saw Nancy alone, vulnerable, and made an impulsive decision to take her. Something personal, maybe there's a relationship or connection we don't know about yet. Maybe someone in Nancy's past came back. Maybe there's a secret the family doesn't even know. Without knowing who took Nancy, it's impossible to know the motive. But motive matters because it tells investigators where to look, who to suspect, what questions to ask. Let's talk about the $100,000 reward. That's a significant amount of money, and it's designed to do one thing: get people to talk. Maybe someone saw something but didn't think it was important. Now, with $100,000 on the line, they're reconsidering. Maybe someone knows who did this but has been too scared to come forward. Now, with that kind of money, they're tempted to take the risk. Maybe someone is harboring the perpetrator, sheltering them, protecting them. But $100,000 might be enough to change their mind. Rewards work. They generate tips. Some of those tips are useless, people calling in with wild theories or false information hoping to cash in. But some of those tips are genuine. Some of those tips break cases wide open. If you know anything about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, you need to call the FBI. If you saw something, if you heard something, if you know someone who's been acting strangely since February 1st, you need to speak up. $100,000 could change your life. But more importantly, your information could save Nancy's life. Let's talk about what happens next. As of right now, this case is still active. Nancy is still missing. The FBI is still investigating. There are really only a few possible outcomes. Outcome 1, Nancy is found alive. Maybe she's being held somewhere. Maybe she managed to survive despite her medical issues. Maybe investigators find her in time, rescue her, and arrest the person responsible. This is the outcome everyone is praying for. Outcome 2, Nancy is found deceased. Her body is discovered in the desert or in some other location. The cause of death is determined. Evidence from the body leads investigators to the perpetrator. An arrest is made. The family gets closure, even though they've lost Nancy forever. Outcome 3, Nancy is never found. Despite the FBI's best efforts, despite the reward, despite the media attention, she simply vanishes. This is the worst outcome. No body. No arrest. No answers. Just questions that will haunt the family for the rest of their lives. Outcome 4, an arrest is made before Nancy is found. Maybe investigators identify a suspect, gather enough evidence to charge them, and arrest them. Then they pressure the suspect to reveal where Nancy is. Maybe the suspect talks. Maybe they don't. Right now, 13 days in, we're in limbo. We don't know which outcome we're heading toward. We can only wait, watch, and hope. Let's talk about you. Yes, you, the person watching this video right now. You might be thinking, I don't know anything about this case. I don't live in Tucson. I've never met Nancy Guthrie. How can I help? But here's the thing, you never know what you might know. Did you travel through Tucson in late January or early February? Did you stop at a gas station, a restaurant, a hotel? Did you see anything unusual? Did you see an elderly woman who looked distressed or out of place? Do you have friends or family in Tucson? Have any of them mentioned anything strange happening in their neighborhood? Have they noticed anyone acting suspiciously? Are you part of online communities focused on true crime, missing persons, or unsolved cases? Share this video. Share Nancy's story. The more people who know about this case, the more likely someone will come forward with information. Do you have experience with home security systems, medical devices, or investigative techniques? Is there something in this case that stands out to you, something the general public might not notice but that could be significant? Your voice matters. Your attention matters. Your willingness to share this story could be the thing that brings Nancy home. Let's talk about the media coverage of this case. It's been intense, as you'd expect given Savannah Guthrie's prominence. Every major news outlet has covered the story. Nancy's photo has been on television screens across the country. The hashtag #FindNancyGuthrie has trended on social media. But there's a dark side to that coverage. Some outlets have speculated wildly, throwing out theories without evidence, naming potential suspects without any basis. Some have turned this into entertainment, into a spectacle, forgetting that there's a real family suffering, a real woman missing. That's not what we do here at Cold Case Crime Lab. We focus on facts. We present evidence. We respect the victims and their families. And we don't stop until we find answers. Nancy Guthrie deserves better than to be a headline that fades away after a week. She deserves to be found. She deserves justice. And her family deserves to know what happened. Let's talk about the community response. The people of Tucson have rallied around Nancy's family in beautiful ways. Volunteer search parties have combed the desert. Local businesses have donated resources. Churches have held prayer vigils. Community members have posted flyers, shared information on social media, and kept Nancy's story alive. This is what humanity looks like at its best. When tragedy strikes, people come together. They support each other. They refuse to give up hope. And that community support might be exactly what solves this case. Because somewhere in Tucson, someone knows something. Maybe they don't realize it yet. Maybe they think what they saw or heard isn't important. But the community is watching. The community is listening. And the community isn't going to let Nancy be forgotten. Let's talk about the psychological profile of the perpetrator. Based on the evidence we have, we can make some educated guesses about who this person might be. They're organized. The crime scene suggests planning. The cameras were destroyed deliberately. The entry into the home appears controlled. This isn't a chaotic, impulsive act. This is someone who thought about what they were doing. They have some knowledge of security systems. They knew to destroy the cameras. They might have known how to disable cloud uploads or internet connections. This suggests technical knowledge, or at least enough internet research to figure it out. They might have medical knowledge. Removing a pacemaker isn't something most people would know how to do. This could indicate medical training, or at least familiarity with medical procedures. They knew Nancy's routine. They knew when she would be home. They knew she would be alone. This suggests surveillance, stalking, or insider knowledge from someone close to Nancy. They're comfortable with violence. Ripping out a pacemaker, causing enough injury to leave blood, potentially killing an elderly woman. These are not the actions of someone squeamish or hesitant. This is someone capable of brutality. They're taking a huge risk. Abducting the mother of a nationally known journalist, knowing the FBI would get involved, knowing the media would cover it relentlessly, that takes either incredible confidence or incredible stupidity. Or desperation. So we're looking for someone organized, knowledgeable, violent, and either very smart or very reckless. That narrows the profile, but it doesn't give us a name. Let's talk about the importance of the first 48 hours in a missing person case. Statistically, if someone isn't found within the first 48 hours, the chances of finding them alive drop dramatically. We're way past 48 hours now. We're at 13 days. That's 312 hours. Does that mean Nancy is dead? Not necessarily. People have survived much longer in captivity. But it does mean time is running out. If Nancy is alive and being held somewhere, her medical conditions are getting worse. Without her pacemaker, her heart is struggling. Without her medication, her blood pressure could be dangerously high or low. Without food and water, her body is shutting down. Every hour matters. Every minute matters. That's why the FBI is working so urgently. That's why the reward is so high. That's why Savannah is begging the public for help. Because Nancy Guthrie is running out of time. Let's talk about similar cases. Has anything like this happened before? There have been other cases of elderly individuals being abducted from their homes. Some were cases of financial exploitation that turned violent. Some were cases of mental illness where the perpetrator fixated on a particular victim. Some were cases of revenge or personal grudges. But cases where the victim is the parent of a celebrity are rare. The media attention makes them complicated. The perpetrator knows they're under a microscope. They know every law enforcement agency in the country is looking for them. That makes them either very careful or very unstable. In some past cases, the perpetrator has reached out to the media, trying to control the narrative or make demands. So far, that hasn't happened here, at least not publicly. In other cases, the perpetrator has left clues deliberately, taunting investigators, playing games. The destroyed cameras could be seen as that kind of taunt: I know you're looking for me, and I don't care. Or it could just be someone trying to cover their tracks and making mistakes along the way. Let's talk about the possibility of a wrongful suspicion. In high-profile cases like this, innocent people sometimes get caught in the crossfire. They get suspected, investigated, harassed by the public, even though they had nothing to do with the crime. Tommaso Cian is in that position right now. He was the last person to see Nancy alive. That makes him a person of interest by default. But being a person of interest doesn't mean he's guilty. If Tommaso is innocent, and there's no evidence to suggest otherwise, he's going through hell. He's being investigated. His name is being whispered about. People are looking at him differently. And he has to live with the knowledge that his mother-in-law is missing, possibly dead, and he can't do anything to help. We have to be careful not to rush to judgment. We have to let the investigators do their job. We have to wait for evidence before we point fingers. Because destroying an innocent person's life doesn't bring Nancy home. Let's talk about what you can do right now to help. 1. Share this video. Share it on every platform you use. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, everywhere. The more people who see Nancy's story, the better. 2. If you're in the Tucson area, pay attention. Look at the people around you. If you see an elderly woman who seems out of place, who seems distressed, call 911. If you hear anyone talking about the case in a suspicious way, report it to the FBI. 3. Check your own security footage. If you have cameras on your home or business in the Tucson area, go back and look at the footage from January 31st and February 1st. You might have captured something without realizing it. 4. Talk to people. Bring up Nancy's case in conversation. Someone you know might have information they don't realize is important. Someone might have been in Tucson around that time. Someone might have seen something. 5. Don't forget. Cases like this fade from the news cycle quickly. A week from now, there will be some other tragedy dominating the headlines. But Nancy will still be missing. Her family will still be suffering. Keep her story alive. Keep talking about it. Keep demanding answers. Because that's how cases get solved. Not by one big break, but by 1,000 small actions. By people who care. By people who refuse to look away. Let's talk about hope. After 13 days, after all the evidence pointing to something terrible, is there still reason to hope Nancy is alive? Yes. People have survived against impossible odds. People have been found alive weeks, months, even years after they disappeared. Nancy is tough. She's a survivor. She raised 3 kids alone after her husband died. She built a career. She stayed sharp, active, engaged with the world well into her 80s. If anyone can survive this, it's Nancy. And as long as there's even a 1% chance she's alive, we don't give up. We keep looking. We keep hoping. We keep fighting. Because that's what Nancy's family is doing. That's what Savannah is doing. That's what the FBI is doing. And that's what we're doing here at Cold Case Crime Lab. Let's talk about the emotional toll this case is taking on everyone involved. Savannah Guthrie has had to put her entire life on hold. She's not working. She's not with her children in the same way she normally would be. She's consumed by this nightmare, waiting for news, any news, good or bad, just to know what happened to her mother. Annie and her husband Tommaso are dealing with the same anguish, plus the added burden of being under investigation. Cameron, Nancy's son, is going through this too, though he's been less visible in the media. Nancy's grandchildren are trying to understand why their grandmother is gone. They're scared. They're confused. They're being told to hope, but they're old enough to sense the adults around them are terrified. And the investigators, the FBI agents, the deputies, the forensic specialists, they're carrying this burden too. They know every hour they don't solve this case is another hour Nancy might be suffering. They're working 18-hour days. They're sacrificing time with their own families. They're pushing themselves to exhaustion because they can't bear the thought of failing. This case is destroying people emotionally. And it won't stop until Nancy is found. Let's talk about the role social media has played in this case. Within hours of Nancy's disappearance being announced, the case went viral. Millions of people saw her photo. Millions of people shared information. The hashtag Find Nancy Guthrie trended for days. Social media can be incredibly powerful in cases like this. It spreads information fast. It reaches people law enforcement might not reach. It keeps cases in the public eye. But social media also has a dark side. Armchair detectives start making wild accusations. People dox innocent individuals, publishing their addresses and phone numbers. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. In Nancy's case, some social media users have already decided Tommaso is guilty, even though there's no evidence. They've harassed him online. They've sent threatening messages to his workplace. They've made his life hell. That's not justice. That's mob mentality. And it needs to stop. If you're on social media, use your platform responsibly. Share facts, not speculation. Support the family, don't harass them. And if you see someone spreading false information or harassing innocent people, call them out. Because social media can help solve this case, but only if we use it the right way. Let's talk about the long-term implications if this case isn't solved. What happens if we never find out what happened to Nancy Guthrie? Her family will live with that uncertainty forever. They'll never be able to grieve properly because they won't know if she's dead. They'll never be able to move on because they'll always wonder if she's out there somewhere, waiting for them to find her. Savannah will carry that guilt. She'll wonder if there was something she could have done differently. She'll second-guess every decision she made. She'll live with the knowledge that her mother needed her and she couldn't save her. The case will become a cold case, filed away in some database, occasionally revisited when new evidence or techniques become available, but mostly forgotten. And whoever took Nancy will get away with it. They'll know they committed the perfect crime. They'll know they destroyed a family and faced no consequences. That can't happen. We can't let that happen. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this. That's why we're keeping Nancy's story alive. Because she deserves justice. And her family deserves answers. Let's talk about the role of the president in this case. It's unusual for a sitting president to personally intervene in a missing person case, even when the victim is related to a prominent journalist. So why did the president get involved? It could be a personal connection. Savannah Guthrie has interviewed multiple presidents over her career. She's covered the White House for years. The president might feel a personal obligation to help. It could be political. Showing concern for a high-profile victim makes the administration look compassionate, engaged, responsive. It could be practical. The president has the power to direct federal resources toward this case. They can ensure the FBI has everything they need. They can cut through bureaucratic red tape. Whatever the reason, the president's involvement signals that this case is a national priority. And that puts even more pressure on investigators to solve it. Let's talk about the pacemaker again, because I can't stop thinking about it. This detail is so specific, so disturbing, that it has to be significant. Whoever removed Nancy's pacemaker either had medical knowledge or looked up how to do it. They knew what a pacemaker was. They knew where it would be located. They knew how to access it. That suggests premeditation. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision. This was planned. But why leave it behind? If you're trying to hide evidence, why leave the pacemaker on the floor where it will be found immediately? Maybe it's a message. Maybe the perpetrator is trying to tell us something. I have control over whether Nancy lives or dies. I decided she doesn't need this anymore. Or maybe it's practical. Maybe Nancy's heart stopped and the perpetrator panicked, tried to do CPR, and in the process dislodged the pacemaker. Then, realizing it was loose, they removed it entirely, thinking it might help. Or maybe it's cruel. Maybe the perpetrator wanted Nancy to suffer, wanted her to feel her heart failing, wanted her to know she was dying. I don't know. But that pacemaker tells a story, and investigators are trying to figure out what that story is. Let's talk about the Catalina Foothills neighborhood where Nancy lived. It's an affluent area. Large homes. Lots of space between properties. Quiet. Safe. Or at least it was supposed to be safe. Crimes like this don't happen in neighborhoods like this very often. That's part of what makes this case so shocking. People in the Catalina Foothills aren't supposed to be abducted from their homes in the middle of the night. That's the kind of thing that happens in movies, not in real life. But it did happen. And now every resident of that neighborhood is looking over their shoulder. They're checking their locks. They're installing new security systems. They're wondering if they're next. Because if it could happen to Nancy Guthrie, it could happen to anyone. Let's talk about the FBI's resources. When I say they deployed hundreds of agents, I mean it. This is a full-scale operation. They have agents conducting interviews. They have agents analyzing digital evidence. They have agents coordinating with local law enforcement. They have agents working with the media. They have agents in the field searching for Nancy. They have access to the most advanced investigative technology in the world. Facial recognition software. DNA analysis. Cell phone tracking. Satellite imagery. Behavioral analysis. Forensic accounting. If Nancy can be found, the FBI will find her. But even with all those resources, all that technology, all that expertise, they still need one thing: luck. They need someone to come forward with information. They need a witness who saw something. They need a piece of evidence that points them in the right direction. They need a break. And that break could come from you. It could come from someone watching this video right now. Let's talk about the possibility that Nancy is being held for reasons we don't understand yet. Maybe this isn't about ransom. Maybe this isn't about revenge. Maybe there's something else going on. Human trafficking. Unlikely. Nancy is 84 years old with serious health problems. She's not a typical trafficking victim. A cult or extremist group. Possible. There have been cases where extremist groups target individuals for recruitment or indoctrination. But again, Nancy's age and health make this unlikely. A case of mistaken identity? Maybe someone thought they were taking someone else and realized their mistake too late. Now they're stuck with Nancy and don't know what to do. A delusion? Maybe the perpetrator is suffering from severe mental illness and believes Nancy is someone else, a long-lost relative, a government agent, a threat. They might be protecting her or saving her from some imagined danger. Without knowing who took Nancy, we can't rule out anything. Let's talk about the clock. 13 days. 312 hours. 18,720 minutes. That's how long Nancy has been gone. Every second that passes is another second she's in danger. Another second her family is suffering. Another second the perpetrator is out there, free. Time is the enemy in cases like this. Time allows evidence to degrade. Time allows memories to fade. Time allows perpetrators to cover their tracks. But time also brings opportunities. Time allows investigators to analyze evidence thoroughly. Time allows witnesses to come forward. Time allows patterns to emerge. So we wait. We watch. We hope. And we don't give up. This is Nancy Ellen Guthrie. 84 years old. Mother. Grandmother. Widow. Survivor. She is not just a news story. She is not just a statistic. She is a human being who deserves to be found. Her daughter Savannah is begging for her return. The FBI is working around the clock. The president has intervened. A $100,000 reward has been posted. And you, yes, you, might be the person who brings her home. If you know anything, if you saw anything, if you heard anything, contact the FBI immediately. Don't wait. Don't assume someone else will call. Don't think your information isn't important enough. Call now. Because Nancy Guthrie is out there somewhere. And she's running out of time. This is Cold Case Crime Lab. We don't stop until we find answers. We don't forget. We don't move on. And we're asking you to do the same. Share this video. Talk about Nancy. Keep her story alive. Because the only way this ends is if we all work together. The only way Nancy comes home is if someone speaks up. And that someone could be you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for not looking away. Hit that like button. Drop a comment with your thoughts, your theories, your prayers for Nancy and her family. And subscribe to Cold Case Crime Lab so you don't miss any updates on this case or any of the other cases we cover. Nancy Guthrie needs us. Her family needs us. And we're not going to let them down. This is Cold Case Crime Lab, signing off. But we're not done. Not even close. We'll be back with updates as soon as we have them. Until then, stay vigilant. Stay hopeful. And remember Nancy. Because somewhere out there, she's waiting to be found. And we're going to find her.